Welcome to the Beyond Electric Sheep podcast. I'm Rick Thompson.
And I'm Ed Daniels.
Hey, Ed. So for the episode today, we wanted to talk about a project you're working on. You've been tapped to lead a seminar. Actually, I don't want to give away too much about it because it's a confidential thing, but on AI. And you were telling me about a project you were doing getting ready for this, building an agent. What was it exactly?
Right. Well, I was talking with the host of this. It's a 2-day session, and we both thought, okay, it's one thing to talk about AI. It's another thing to actually introduce our audience or participants to what AI can really do, because you have to have the experience to really understand what this whole thing is all about and why it's so amazing. And so I decided I'd build a bot to help get people introduced to the concept of the seminar and to talk about the topics and to be able to interact before they actually get there. And so anyway, that's what I thought we'd talk about a little bit.
Okay, that sounds cool. So you're an engineer by training, and you've been in healthcare IT for your career,
right.
But you're not an AI expert. You're definitely an enthusiast and a heavy user of it, as I am. I'm in a technical field as well around data and BI and so on. But we've both done programming in our past,
right.
but aren't sort of engineers right now or programmers right now. So how do you approach that?
Well, to me, not only is this a good way to expose our prospective audience to AI and what it's all about, it's also a chance for me to be able to experiment with this. So I started working with a platform. It's called uai.ai. It's a proprietary platform, but one thing I like about it is they allow you to select from different LLM models. So you can pick Claude, you can pick GPT 3.5 is their base, but I upgraded to get GPT-4. So you can experiment with different models, which also is a great thing for me to be able to experiment with to see how well they function, how well they interact. And then, you have to write a prompt to start with, and there's some let's say hygiene type things you need to do. You got to create sort of a landing page or an initial introduction. So when people log on, it just says, hey, I'm a bot that's going to tell you about this meeting, and you'll be able to interact with me and ask questions. So anyway, I started building this prompt. Now, I've done this multiple times before with some other bots to help, for example, write a Medium post or a blog post. And so I've had a chance to experiment with prompting, and I guess it's a whole job description now, right? Prompt engineering.
Yeah.
People make $200,000 a year doing it. Well, it's just been interesting to me to experiment with how to write the prompt. And then after that, there's some other elements to it, like building a workflow, and then in this case, using retrieval augmented generation, be able to
let's stop on
add
that.
in some data. Yeah.
Okay, so people may hear about RAG, or retrieval augmented generation. What does that mean?
Well, it basically means that you're feeding in data that the language model can use essentially as an extension of the prompt to be able to produce a result that is based on specific knowledge versus the generalized training that it starts out with.
So an example would be upload a white paper on a specific topic.
Right.
Now that's part of the context for the chat, so it can now answer questions about that white paper.
Exactly. And so it helps to prevent, hallucinations and other things that a bot, especially if you turn up the heat on the bot,
make it more creative.
It can go out and just make up a lot of different things. In this case, you can narrow it down to just be able to respond based on the material that you feed it, or that plus a little bit of additional exploration.
Okay. So what material did you put in? You said you wanted participants to be able to explore some of the topics beforehand.
Yes.
Did I understand that right?
Right. And so in this case, there were sort of a couple of different types of material. One is the agenda for the event itself. The first day, the first session, we're going to do this. The second session, we're going to do this. The third session, we're going to do that. Then we're going to get together for dinner. Then the next day, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. And so I fed the agenda, which isn't completely finalized, in there for the bot to learn about. And then I also, because I happen to be the facilitator of this session, I also put in a couple different versions of my bio and my personal background.
Oh, that's great.
And then this sounds like a recipe, doesn't it? Like I'm cooking dinner tonight.
Yeah.
And so then I put in some papers that I've written on artificial intelligence, and so that we get the idea of my expertise and my opinion, and also the way that I like to speak and the way that I like to write.
Yeah.
And so
I love that. Okay. So that all makes sense. Quick aside, you have a Substack where you put these articles. We should put that in the notes for this podcast so people can find it. Okay. So then so you've sort of built the prompts. You've used, I don't know what the right verb is, but you've ragged.
I said ragged it, but whatever the right word for it is.
You've loaded a bunch of context,
Yeah.
and then what do you do to get it ready for people to use?
Which I believe, by the way, it sucks that in and loads it into a vector database to make it accessible by the large language model.
Okay.
Then this UAI.ai platform has a workflow engine built into it, which those guys are improving that. It used to be just step 1, step 2, step 3 you can build into it, but now it actually has a whole branching logic capability. So
what would be a use case?
Well, in this case, I'll explain how this works, and that is you start out by asking what is the user's name, the person who's logging into this, what's your name? What's your role? In other words, are you attending this event, or are you a member of the staff, or are you me, the facilitator? You identify who you are. And then the third step in this very simple workflow is, what's your question? What do you want to know about the event? And I have just a lead-in explanation, but then the person can say, well, I want to know what the weather's going to be like, or I want to know where to stay for a hotel, or I want to know, is this going to be for really expert people or not so expert people, or is this going to be for CEOs or for staff members, things like that.
And you've fed it all of that, sort of an FAQ as part of the RAG data.
Right.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
We'll see how it works. It's still in the experimental stage, but it's a real event, and people are really going to go in and ask it questions. And I tested it out with a lot of obscure, kind of crazy questions.
And it did okay.
It did great.
Now, and then the interface is just a web page, and they're just typing and they're getting text back.
Right.
I think you mentioned that you can use an avatar, but maybe it's not ready for prime time yet.
Yeah, I did also. I experimented with another platform that has avatars that they make synthetic speech, and they also, you can feed it for example, a face. And, I make these faces using Midjourney, so I create a face of an avatar or, a synthetic person, and then this platform can drive the mouth and the facial motions. And so then they have now, in an experimental beta kind of release, hooked it up to an LLM. And so I also, with that, this is a completely separate platform.
Okay, you can't combine them, yeah.
Right, but I did set up a prompt, and they aren't quite ready yet for the whole RAG type stuff and the same kind of logic that this other company has. But I experimented with it. It was great with the interaction. It's like you're talking to a human being. You can interact with it, but I was not able to give it as complex information as I wanted, and I wasn't able to get as an intelligent a response as I really wanted. And I think that's probably because it's not based on a advanced enough LLM. But I'm sure they'll get there. But at the moment, it's just plugged into your base GPT-3 level LLM.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, you can see where just regular folks like us and people that might be listening will be able to use this stuff to big advantage with weird little edge use cases like that. I think I mentioned in an earlier episode, my brother was rebooking a United flight with an automated attendant, and it wasn't like the old kind where, say the flight number and then you said such and such. It was like a conversation, and he asked it to do a complicated thing, and it went off and did it. And in fact, the first answer it gave was not acceptable to him about the flight it was going to book. I can't remember if it was wrong or just a bad time, and he told it that, and it apologized and went and got another one and came back. So that's pretty sophisticated, but I think a lot of us are going to be able to use these all over the place in our businesses and our customer service. Obviously, customer service, that's going to be one of the industries that gets hammered in terms of human capital, I think. It's going to be cheaper to run these.
Right.
Yeah. All right. That's cool. I'll look forward to hearing how that goes.
All right. Well, it'll be an active experiment here. We're going to know in the next few weeks how well it works.
All right. Cool. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.